Is it not that the Republican Party are authoritarians? Is it that they're actually royalists? This is Beyond Politics. I'm Matt Robeson, your host, with my co-host, former U.S. Congressman Paul Hodes, and we're delighted to welcome back Fred Wellman. You know him as one of the leaders of the Lincoln Project, now off doing his own thing. You're doing an outstanding Substack. Everyone's got a Substack these days. It's like a social security number.
I know.
Yours is really good. It's really good. It's called
Thanks.
On Democracy, and you've got an associated podcast. We love the podcast game. You're on YouTube. You're wherever you can get your podcast.
Everywhere,
and,
like a virus.
What really caught our eye, and the reason we've wanted to have you back for a while, but the specific reason we've wanted to have you back is you wrote a really interesting article called "We Had a Whole Revolution About This." People can Google it. The Substack is On Democracy, Fred Wellman. And the subtitle is "There is no American royalty, and we need to make sure it stays this way." And it sets up this fascinating premise that there's been all this talk recently about, oh, there's an authoritarian impulse on the right. There's an authoritarian impulse in the MAGA movement and in the Republican Party, and they all kowtow to Viktor Orban and Vladimir Putin and these strongmen figures who actually exhibit a lot of SDE and that kind of thing. But really what you're saying is it's a little different. We need to think about it a little differently. Like, what kind of got you onto this line of thinking?
It's the article I talk about three of these main things. One, what got me rolling was the Trump indictment, right? Where the argument isn't that he didn't commit crimes. If you look at very carefully what the Republicans are saying, what the Princetons are saying, the Dukes and all, like Jim Jordan is, they're saying, nobody's saying that wasn't a crime. They're saying they're just such minor crimes. He should be above that. It got me thinking very much like I'm a bit of a historian. I'm a history buff. I'm very fortunate to have a family that goes way, way back. I mentioned the article that I'm actually using the book right here, that I have ancestor direct line father lines who served in the Revolutionary War. And he was a part of the Mansfield militia. We're actually OG New Englanders. My Thomas Wellman came to the United States and the colonies in 1640. And so our Revolutionary War heroes marched to the Lexington Alarm. And it was a whole ass revolution about the fact that the king wanted to do whatever he wanted. And so it just got me thinking more and more that what we're hearing more and more is that they feel like they should be above the law, that folks like Donald Trump, folks like Clarence Thomas now, folks like Ron DeSantis, who simply just dictate. And there's three cases. You have Trump committing crimes and nobody thinks he should be held accountable for them. You got Clarence Thomas basically saying that ethics rules apply to the little people. He's above all that because his long friend who became a friend after he became a Supreme Court justice, they're friends. They're just friends. It's none of our little people's business to worry about what he's doing. And then of course, Ron DeSantis, who uses his parliament much like a king would, right? Like in the old days where he just gives them laws and they give him the example. There's a law right now in the books that the governor, a state official can't run for federal office. No worries. Parliament's just going to change that for him. It just got me thinking more and more. It's not even authoritarian. It's just literally royalist. And these people who call themselves patriots, that's all about, oh, we're a patriot. I'm a patriot. 1776. Yeah. We actually fought a whole ass war to stop the things that you want, which is the idea that anyone is above the law. The idea that a royal figure can just simply decree what he wants and his loyal little lapdogs will do the thing for him. The idea that only the rules apply to the little people. And those three cases all coming in 1 week which is how I write my Substack. It's like, oh, I have an idea. And I just blurted out. I actually wrote that on an airplane. I'm proud of myself, which is rare for me.
I wrote my last Newsweek article at my daughter's basketball practice because
there you go.
My editor was like, Matt, where's your article? And I'm like, yeah, I'm going.
You're a real ass writer when you can do that. I feel like I'm actually a real ass writer.
I feel that way. I want to let Paul leap in here, but could we just put in the parking lot since we're on the royalist theme? And this just occurred to me since you invoked the name of Ron DeSantis, who's like incompetent Voldemort. If Donald Trump is Voldemort, Ron like Lucius Malfoy, he's like the bumbling wannabe. There's a delicious irony on the royal theme having to do with how Ron DeSantis is such a wannabe authoritarian and he can't quite make it happen. And there's a royal tie-in. Just let's circle back to that, but go ahead.
Okay. Paul. Ron DeSantis is Wormtail.
That's it.
Nice.
That's it. Yeah, that's it.
Wormtail.
No, it's exactly, yeah.
Boom.
And I know that makes Casey and it makes Christina Pusha. That's the thing I can't. Those folks who his little dukedoms there, his little the princess behind the throne. It's truly. And he wants to be such a big deal. Did you see the flooding today? I just tweeted about an hour ago that there's video of the Fort Lauderdale airport's flooded. And where's Ron? King Ron, Prince Ron's off on his book tour, which by the way is flailing because nobody gives a shit what he says. It's just Honestly,
You know,
it's exhausting.
I'd grown really used to the idea of just in terms of name calling, which I love because now I'm not in Congress and
There you go.
I'm on a podcast. I can be absurd and crazy and say whatever the hell I want. I'm calling Republicans fascists. I've been talking about them as authoritarians. I've been comparing them to Putin. There's all that. Now, thinking of them, however, as royalists is really a really different twist. In a way, it softens the blow, but it also makes it more accessible to people who might feel like, I don't want to call people fascist authoritarians, but if you say, think of them as royalists, we're out for another American Revolution, January 6th bullshit on its head, to say, no, you got to go back to the original revolution when we fought the royalists who were imposing their will without any rules and without our having a real say in it. So it's both softer, but maybe smarter.
Thank you. I think that's it. It ties. I felt it tied it to the American experience. Look, we really haven't truly experienced fascism, right? We didn't experience Germany. We weren't experienced Germany, Italy, even Japan. We haven't had those. The royal is the idea that this distant ruler who was unanswerable to our needs, though demanding our money, demanding our taxes, demanding our fealty, and didn't really answer to us. We weren't represented. I live in Missouri. How is that not the Missouri experience? I live in Missouri. My king doesn't give a shit how I live. The Missouri Republicans don't give a damn how we live. They don't answer to us. 40% of the Republican legislature here ran unopposed. And no one blinks an eye about that because we can't rally enough Democrats to get out there and vote for him. How is that not a royalist and a lapdog parliament? And most of these red states and in the Republican Congress right now, they're not answering to us. It's a natural fit. The American experience is that we had a king and a parliament that didn't answer the needs of the people. And we had a revolution because we felt we had been abandoned and our needs were not being met by the people who claimed power over us. It is incredibly frustrating here to see how they simply don't answer to anyone. They use their power for ruthless means.
That's what I think
is
the benefit of the reframing around royalty and this sense of being above everyone. It's so perfectly captured in the image that's somewhat famous now that you included in your Substack article of Clarence Thomas sitting, and couldn't be more perfect. It almost looks like a perverse Last Supper. It's him sitting, and I'm going to put this right in the video. If you're listening to the audio version of the pod, check this out. I will put this right in there. It does look like a painting, and it's Clarence Thomas.
Is a painting. No, that's actual painting.
That's an actual painting?
That's a painting hanging in Harlan Crow's at his little lodge, his giant lodge. That's a painting. It looks like a photograph.
What's so obnoxious?
You can't make this shit up.
So obnoxious about it is it's Clarence Thomas sitting on his throne and everyone giving him their rapt attention while what looks like a Native American leader is holding his arms aloft in what appears to be a benediction. There's this sort of like invoking a higher power, divine right of kings vibe to it.
Exactly.
But the way it really connects,
and then you find out who those people are, who those princelings are, courtiers are.
What really drives me nuts about it is that it's the
head of the Federalist Society. That's the head.
Yeah, and what I think is what maybe doesn't connect when you say authoritarian is that it implies that there is a power that is trying to dictate the minutia of your life. You think 1984, you think of the German experience. But what this is much more about is being above everything, is being not responsive. And that makes me think of the expulsions of the legislators in Tennessee last week, because you have a situation where hundreds of thousands of people are crying out quite literally after the death of children.
Petitioning their government is a term I'd like to use.
Petitioning their government, saying, please do something. Please do something. You're supposed to represent us. And the Republican leadership in the legislature is so obnoxious. They're so non-responsive. They're so more concerned about the rights of guns than of humans that they say, we cannot abide you speaking truth to us. We are going to expel you. We're going to send you away from our presence. You can't even deign to talk to us. And then they speak down to them. They speak down to these black men as if they were children because they're so puffed up on their Ku Klux Klan infused heritage.
Uppity blacks.
Exactly.
I mean, that one speech, the guy that called him out, he wanted to
Andrew
say
Farmer. Let's say his name.
Farmer.
Andrew Farmer.
He wanted to say, you could see it on his lips. He wanted to say, boy.
He wanted to.
Yeah. You wanted attention. Boom. You could almost see his lips forming the word, the disdain and disgust he had for these young men for using their voices to petition their government. My God, how do you not see it?
We never literally,
the right to petition your government is like one of the first things we fought for. And no,
I would never advocate violence. Never.
And there wasn't
advocate violence.
But civil disobedience is not insurrection.
But if there were a way, in a nonviolent way to say Will Smith style slap Mr. Farmer, I'd be okay with that. I would not be against Representative Pearson stepping up to him and just a little get my name out of your mouth.
Well, I think they did bitch slap him. Let's be honest. The fact that I just posted the picture before we went on the air of him being re-sworn in. And all the GOP did was show exactly who they are. And what I love about where we are in America today, you can bemoan social media and all this stuff all you want. I don't. Everybody sees it. You know, it would have been would have committed a kerfuffle in Tennessee 10 years ago, 20 years ago, is now a national thing. The Tennessee GOP, Mr. Farmer, and his dripping, seething rage and racism is the face of the Republican Party to a lot of people right now.
Can I ask a question over to Paul? Because I think this is an intriguing idea, and I have a perception of this, but I was merely a staffer. Paul, you were a member of Congress, and you're inside the rooms with this. It was always my perception that when politicians get corrupt, people say that the road to hell is paved with good intentions. No, wrong. The road to hell is paved with a sense of entitlement. It's the sense of, I don't need to follow this rule. It doesn't apply to me. And you start by giving yourself small permissions to say, I don't really need to follow this rule because I work so hard. I don't need to worry about the gift ban because I've really earned this. What's the harm? I can have an extramarital affair. I can go hiking the Appalachian Trail because I'm Mark Sanford. I work hard as the governor of South Carolina. That was always my perception. You, Paul, were a very upstanding citizen. You really cared about following the rules as a member of Congress. But you had a lot of colleagues.
God, what a dork I was. I missed all the crime.
So when you weren't getting wedgies, getting wedgies, like when Bernie Sanders wasn't coming up to you and going,
stuffing you in the locker. I heard it was tough, man.
What's your perception like when politicians go bad, when they start to get corrupt and start to think that they're above all this? Is that what happens? Is they start to give themselves permission to make small, or like, how does it happen?
Your question reminds me of Charlie Rangel, the New York congressman, when I got there, aged New York congressman with the best voice in Congress, Charlie Rangel. He had a great voice.
Mr. Speaker. By the way, just for our video viewers, the American flag that is up behind me on my wall was given to me by Charlie Rangel. Go on.
Charlie Rangel supported me very early on. Maybe he knew I was from New York originally, and he supported me. And I was a politician. I loved Charlie Rangel. I'd like to hear him talk. I like that, Mr. Speaker. And he wielded his New York influence with deftness until it came out that he was playing very fast and loose with real estate and money and mortgages and this and that. And then I faced a question as straight arrow as I was, and I was and am a straight arrow. I'm sorry, I just am. I ended up as I think one of the first members of Congress calling on Charlie to resign. Because I believed all this stuff. Okay, I believed in the Constitution. I believed in the criminal code. I believed in a code. I was a lawyer. I believed in a code of ethics. I'd spent my life being ethical. And I thought that being a representative in the United States Congress carried with it the obligation of ethics. and honesty and integrity.
I want to go back to the Trump arraignment, the Trump charges. You said something very interesting, both in your commentary, and I think there's a flavor of this in your Substack article. Again, I can't pitch this enough. It's called On Democracy. It's worth a read. You're talking about the charges against Trump, and you're saying that there is this defense of Trump going on Fox News, which to me sounds bass-ackwards, I gotta say, which is, this doesn't rise to the level that he should be indicted for this. This is too small a crime for him. And to me, that is perverse and backwards. It's the very fact that it is a kind of pedestrian bread and butter, this is a garden variety prosecution, that means we should prosecute it. Because what you're arguing, if you're Fox News, is literally, here is someone who should be above the law. Here is someone who, because he was the president, the rules that apply to the rest of us should not apply to him.
Exactly.
Is that not the quintessence of saying he is royalty?
He's above our rules. And I tell you, I have a good friend who's a professor here at the University of Missouri, St. Louis, and sociology. And he taught me one day over coffee about, I think he called it a penetration drill. And a penetration drill is where when you have a norm, right? There's a line, right? Congressmen should take bribes. And a penetration is when that norm is broken, right? So let's use the Hatch Act. Hatch Act says I can't advertise political things on as a federal official.
Oh, you mean like when Donald Trump did the convention from the White House? Like that.
Convention from the White House, my Goya beans on the freaking Truman's desk. Okay, Kellyanne Conway opening her fucking mouth. And sorry, bleep.
Oh no, we're al fresco here.
Lovely,
we're
I'm
letting
good.
it all
Kellyanne Conway fucking existing. And so when you have the norms were penetrated, right? So this became okay, right? Using the White House for gain, using the White House for pain. The thing in sociology they've learned is if you do not reset that penetration back to the norm, this is now the norm. Okay. And so the challenge we had, and this is something I said quite a bit 2 years ago when Mr. Biden first took office, was you have to be ruthlessly enforcing the laws. We have to tighten the Hatch Act and put actual fucking teeth in it. We have to tighten the rules around ethics. We have to tighten the rules around criminal. So if we don't reinforce and realign the norms, this is the new norm. And that was always my frustration with so many in this new administration saying, look, norms and traditions, we don't want to prosecute. We don't want DOJ to go down that rabbit hole. We don't want to fuck with the Hatch Act because, we're better than that. We're going to follow the rules now. But the problem is everyone associated with the Republican Party and a Trump administration now knows, shit, I can do whatever I want. When they're back in power, the idea there's not going to be another Trump is delusion beyond measure. And so that's why that's so important. This prosecution is important. Those little crimes must be prosecuted and big crimes, because we know he did those too. And I had a great guest on my podcast. You'll see this week, a guy named Dennis Aftergood. He's a former federal prosecutor from San Francisco. Just a great show if you want to talk. We just talked about the judiciary and the laws, and I hope you'll watch it on Democracy on YouTube. And in this discussion about how we do have to prosecute these laws. And Jack Smith's going to come in with, it looks like 3 cases now, the way things are going, because now we have wire fraud being tossed around. That we have to. So this is my fear always, is we're ready to just accept this new norm. That's going to be the new norm. And then the rules are off. And so urge our leaders who are in power now in Congress to do the damn right thing and tighten the rules. And this is why I'm angry. I spent a lot of my time angry at Mr. Garland. I don't think Mr. Garland understands that we can't just go back to the old federal society. Oh, don't worry. We're all going to respect the rules from now on. We're not, because a lot of people learn the rules don't fucking matter. And those are a royalist. The royalists learn they can get away with it.
I'm a special government employee. I serve on the National Council on the Arts. We're the board. We're the board of directors for the National Endowment for the Arts. We have to sign off. We have to sign off on every penny of taxpayer money that the agency gives out to not-for-profit arts organization. We are instructed on the Hatch Act and ethics just about every time we meet. The lawyers from the agency sit us down and go through the entire conflict of interest, the ethical code, the Hatch Act. They drill it into us. And so I'm a government employee now 4 times a year when I go to Washington for these meetings, and we are infused with the Hatch Act and conflicts of interest. So if it applies to me, if it applies to us, why doesn't it apply to the president?
Or Supreme Court justice, or Supreme Court justice.
I just don't. I didn't.
The highest judicial agency in our country.
I never understood how Trump,
none of it makes sense,
in the White House,
you hear it over and over again.
The Hatch Act, could get away with it time after time, and nobody said anything.
Right.
Here's a fun one. Why the fuck did we have investigations? That's the punchline of the whole thing. When we had Congress for fucking 2 years and we still hold the Senate, not one committee has launched an investigation of the destruction of the Hatch Act by the former administration, because everybody just wants to move on. We can't move the fuck on, right? There's no moving on from breaking the law. And this is my constant frustration. Actually, which leads to today's post, or last night's post on my Substack, because we got to advertise that, fwellman.substack.com. We have to hold our side accountable. And that's my frustration. We're not, for some reason.
What you're doing is you're giving us the Lester Bangs speech from Almost Famous, and you're saying that the best thing we can do for American democracy and for our own party, for the Democratic Party, is to be unmerciful and to rigorously, vigorously, and zealously defend those norms, guardrails against these.
Right.
And it occurs to me, and I want to be careful about this, because it's a very sensitive topic, but the most outrageous, the most obnoxious thing that the Republican Party has been doing in recent years is their whole groomers attack on us, on Democrats. It's such an outrageous, scurrilous, horrible lie, and it's so backwards. And what's also deeply ironic about it is that, in a sense, isn't that what they're doing to all of America? Because their entire argument is, this is okay. It's just a little violation. He can take these classes. Why are we making such a big deal out of a violation of the archives of the National Records Act? Why are we making such a big deal out of falsification of your business records? Why are we making such a big deal out of Donald Trump's words? It's just words. What did he say in the 2016 debate against Hillary Clinton about his grab them by the Access Hollywood tape? It's just locker room talk. It's just words. What are they doing? They're grooming us. That's what it's all about, is progressive violations that go further and further, that get us used to, oh, I guess this was okay, so maybe this is okay. Maybe the line is over here. Maybe we can go further than that. And before you know it, and I'm not just messing around with this, you end up with an insurrection where you actually have formerly responsible media figures and political leaders in America excusing it and saying, this is okay. And then you end up with how Donald Trump launched his presidential campaign with that insane rally in Waco, Texas, where he chose Waco, Texas, because he wanted to celebrate the deaths of 4 federal law enforcement officers there 28 years ago. He wanted to celebrate the deaths of dozens of people, including 28 children, in the raid in Waco, Texas. And he wanted to celebrate the insurrectionists who he had singing that absolutely horrible song, which concluded with a chant of USA, which is exactly what the crowd was chanting as they beat police officer Sidnick with a flagpole. And so I know it's a really tough metaphor that I'm making here, and it's a tough topic. But that is ultimately, Fred, it seems to me, what you're talking about here, which is they are trying to push the Overton window of what's acceptable bit by bit. And it starts by defending Donald Trump, defending Clarence Thomas, and defending Ron DeSantis from their serial violations of the law, which are increasingly severe.
I love they have moved that window so far. They've moved that line of norms to the point of being blurred so badly that the rules don't apply to any of them, as long as, because they can always both sides and say, look,
you've got this entire political party, and it's like their brains are being eaten by some worm, some red rage worm that has eaten their brains. And what comes out is this spew of stupid ass hatred. Calling people Satan. It's like Saturday Night Live, except it is. It's like, it's unimaginable. How did they move Look, I always looked at Republicans as, in the old days, as benign corporatists, right? They would do anything to fall over their shoes to get in bed with big money and corporate control.
Right.
I thought that was pretty bad. I thought that was a real danger for America. How did they move from corporatists to royalists? Was it simply Trump? Was it social media? It wasn't enough to go for big money and corporations? They wanted the whole pickle, so they decided to go for the triple decker and just go the way. What the hell? Nobody's doing it.
Look at our billionaire class. Go ahead, Matt. Our billionaire class.
Let's go first,
Elon Musk.
I'm going to wrap us on what I teased and put in the parking lot at the beginning of the show with the royalty tie-in. And
I think it's when we became this worshipful of these billionaires. Let's be honest. The modern oligarchs are the real dukes, the courtiers, the royal court are the billionaires. It's Harlan Crow. There's this whole line of right wing. They love to bring out George Soros. He's fucking chump change compared to what these fucking people are doing on the right. And so the courtiers are now the billionaires, and the billionaires are dictating them what they want. And that's exactly what we're seeing. I think that's where let's circle back to Harlan Crow. This man, come on, I don't believe for one fucking second he would be friends with a judge, a black judge, okay? If he was a Supreme Court justice, just to blow smoke up my ass that this multi-billionaire from Dallas, Texas, whose father created a racist subdivision in the middle of the city, that's how he's famous, somehow buds with the black judge. No, he bought himself a Supreme Court justice. And those now you're royal. That's where it went wrong. So they went from the corporations to these oligarchs. And oligarch is nothing more than royalty, right? The oligarchs run Russia. The oligarchs ran, look at our own history. The British East India Company, okay? It's right there. The history is in our history. The history is in our British history. My family left, we were Puritans. My family, I actually went to the city we're from in England, and it's where the Puritan prison was. That's where the Wellmans come from. Yeah, so we were Puritans. We left 1640, went to Boston. We've fallen from that way of life since then, obviously, but quite a bit. But that's why we left, because of the persecution, because of the fact that the courtiers were running England and the people meant nothing. Our freedom meant nothing. And to see a party, a great party at one time, a party I was a member of for most of my whole adult life, to circle to be this throwback to a time where they had ultimate power and we were just happy to get what we want, just like peasants. And look, I'm too old and too fucking grumpy, and I served my country too long to be a fucking peasant.
Hey, I love how you just brought this full circle back to the roots, the Puritan roots, the Revolutionary War roots that we started the show with. And I teased this idea that there was some irony here. So let me give it to you. So Paul, you were just asking, how did we go from the corporatist big business party to today's like earworm, brainworm bleep show? The fun part of this is Ron DeSantis decided to pick a fight with the biggest corporation he could because he decided Walt Disney Corporation was too woke or gay woke or whatever it is. Something he just wanted, like, unlike the advice that if you get sent to prison, you pick a fight with the biggest guy whose ass you can kick. He picked a fight with the biggest guy whose ass he could not kick. And they kicked his ass. And so what happened was he tried to remove all their special tax breaks and status. And they said, no, we're not going to let you do that. And they invoked this very clever legal cause where basically they said, you're allowed to do this when the royal family ends. And so there's a delicious ironic tie-in back to royalty here. His authoritarian royalist move was trumped. See what I did there? By an even more royalist move. And
the last heir of George III.
Note, on democracy, you know what we're going to do, Fred? We'll have to do like a home and home. We'd be happy to invade your pod sometime.
I love it. We got to flip over.
Yeah, let's do that. And in the meantime, I hope people will check out your Substack and we'll just continue the conversation.
FP Wellman on Twitter, fpwellman.substack.com is the new Substack. It's doing really well. I can't believe I was doing thrilling. It's free this month. We'll have to get some really cool stuff with our paid subscribers at the end of April. We're going to have friends like you guys on doing Zooms and some special chats we can do. One of my favorite things when I was at the Lincoln Project was running our community organizing stuff and having Facebook Lives and stuff. So I'm really excited about that. Of course, the podcast On Democracy is on every channel. I'm really excited about that. Got some incredible guests coming up. Kevin Cruz, the historian. I've got Tom Nichols coming on. I've got Annie Andrews, who just ran for Congress against Nancy Mace, who's doing some really cool stuff next week. So really very fortunate time to be in the skin that I'm in. So I appreciate you guys for having me.
Awesome. Yeah, Kevin Cruz. Say hi to him, former
I
guest
will.
on our show. All right.
Love it.
With that, we will talk to you soon.
Thanks, gentlemen.